Greetings, Revenovans. Welcome to our winter webinar. We're super excited to launch a bunch of new features for you all. And I think you're going to be excited to see what we've done as well. Remember, it's all built on what you give us feedback and ideas on. So housekeeping first, as always, don't forget you can find this recording on the RLC under the events page. And if you have questions during this webinar, which I expect you might, please use the Q&A section to go ahead and submit those questions and we'll cover those. All right, so what excitement are we going to see today? First, we have some new features. Introducing Artimus. You'll get quite a bit of information today about Artimus, and I'm super excited for what you'll see about our dip into AI. Secondarily, you're going to hear about lane preferences. Lane preferences for both customers and carriers. Then we also have 2 new integrations for you, highway and comm data. And then lastly, we've made some enhancements to the fleet status. So I'm going to turn over Artimus to our resident experts, Dave and Mike, so they can tell us what this Artimus AI can do for you. Dave and Mike, take it away, guys.
Thanks, Christine. Really appreciate that. Dave Romanchuk here, VP of Product Development here at Revenova, and today I'm actually joined by a very special guest, one of our co-founders and COO, Mike Horvath. Mike, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, thanks for having me today, Dave. I'm very excited about this announcement.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think we all are. The reason that we're kind of kicking the webinar off, just Mike and myself here, is because we're very excited to introduce the new AI initiative that Revenova is embarking on here. And without giving too much away, I think I want to hand it back to Mike. Mike, we're fashioning our new AI initiative as Artimus. Can you explain to the folks a little bit what is Artimus and why did we brand it that way?
Yeah, you bet. So Artimus, as Dave mentioned, is our AI brand for all of our AI capabilities moving forward. And how do we come up with Artimus? Well, it's pretty simple. As you know, our application is Revenova TMS, which is our TMS. You've seen it all throughout the application. And when you add AI for the benefit of you, our customer, you come up with Artimus. And that will be our persona for all of our AI capabilities and features moving forward. So we're very excited about Artimus, and here we go.
Yeah, thanks for that, Mike. Kind of a clever name for it, but I think it fits well. Just to describe briefly, what you can expect to see with this first iteration of Artimus. We listened to our customers based on the survey results that we got for where you all thought that AI best fit into your business and how it could be used. And so the 2 kind of biggest ideas that we had that we've implemented with this Winter 25 release is the ability to automatically ingest and reply to customer quote requests. So you can get those and automatically reply, all without any human intervention. And then the other big piece is truck capacity. So when carriers provide you with truck capacity via email, or even if you're on the phone via text and you're typing the capacity into the system, Artimus allows you to receive that information, automatically ingest it, and create the appropriate capacity in the form of truck postings in the TMS. So those are kind of the 2 first initiatives that we've taken with Artimus, and you'll see more demos of the details to come. But Mike, I kind of want to toss it back to you. I'm sure a lot of the folks have seen commercials for Agentforce, which is Salesforce's platform AI initiative. How does Artimus fit in with Agentforce?
Well, it fits in perfectly with Agentforce. So, as Dave mentioned, Agentforce is Salesforce initiative to put AI capabilities on any application that runs on the platform. And so what you'll see from us going forward is Artimus is our brand for all our AI capabilities within our TMS application. And many of those components will be exposed to the Agentforce framework, so you can build your own and deploy your own AI agents using Agentforce capabilities. And we'll probably look at packaging fully fledged AI agents in the future, as well as exposing different LLMs that are tuned for transportation through that framework. But we're really excited about that because we're really the first vendor to have both a build-it-yourself AI capability with Agentforce and pre-baked transportation-specific capabilities with all of our Artimus initiatives. So very excited about bringing AI to you to really drive productivity in your business.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself, and I think without giving any more away, why don't we hand it off to the demos? We'll be handing it off to David Lazar and Alyssa Norcross to take a look at Artimus.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Mike. So I get to show you Artimus's first key capability, which is freight quotation, which, as they mentioned, is when Artimus will parse information from an email or from text entered into the text to load LWC. to create the load record and then also take it a step further and actually create and send out the customer quote as long as there's a matching stored customer rate entry. So it's fully going to automate that cycle of task without any user intervention. All right, let's jump in and take a look. So first thing I'm going to show you is in the AI console, which is just to kind of give you some helpful context. I'll dive into the AI console a little bit later in the demo. But first thing I want to point out here is the confidence score. So essentially what the confidence score says is how confident is the model that it correctly parsed the information from the email or from the text in the text-to-load LWC to create that record. So how that confidence score is used is if you open up this configuration modal, there's these AI load creation thresholds for loads, customer quote, and truck postings. So as long as the output or the confidence is higher than one of these thresholds, the corresponding record will be created. So as long as the load creation confidence score is over 88, that load will be created. As long as the customer quote has a confidence score over 90, it's going to be created. And then similarly for the truck posting, as long as it's over 88 on the confidence score, that truck posting record will be created. Okay. Another just context that we have, in order for Artimus to correctly parse the emails from your customers, you'll have to set up what's called an email service in Salesforce, which the documentation will go through this in a little bit more detail. But you'll see that there's this long email address that's created. Salesforce does this for security reasons, but I'm going to hop into my email so you can kind of see what we recommend. So this email address, again, is the Salesforce created email. What we would recommend for our customers is to create a branded email and then automatically forward any emails received to that inbox to the Artimus Salesforce email address. So that way your customers don't have to remember this super long email. And it could be something like using Chicago Pizza, for example. It would be loads@chicagopizza.com, so your customers won't forget the email address. Okay. So setup basically done. I'm going to pull up this email that I had already pre-typed up here. So it's got the origin, destination, and some commodity information, as well as the signature, which is going to reference the customer's company name. So I'll go ahead and send that over, and then I'll hop back into my Revenova instance. And how we're matching the companies with the emails is on the contact on the account. So since that one came from my personal Gmail account, it's going to match to the account that I have that contact associated with. So I've created this list view here, which is my new AI generated loads. If I hit a refresh, you can see that the new AI generated load was created down here. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that and open it up. Your users are going to be able to use this new AI created load LWC, which shows the exact email input that was sent to Artimus. So hypothetically, in this email, they were checking in on me to make sure I was staying warm in the cold Chicago winter. So this is something where you could pick up the call or pick up the phone and call your customer to keep that human touch there and just make sure you're kind of eyeballing what the email was, but then also benefiting from Artimus being able to create the load and automatically respond to the quote if you don't have time. So there's also this created records section, which breaks down all of the information that Artimus was able to parse. And this is controlled by a new field set that we have here, which is on the load TMS 3. And you can see the corresponding fields that are included in the field set are what are shown under this created records section. So that's going to give you some flexibility so you can see just a quick snapshot of the fields that were parsed. And then if I scroll back up to the FQA and go into the customer quote, you'll see that it's in a customer quote status of quoted. And it was automatically generated because it matched on a stored customer rate entry. So if I hop back into my email and I look at my new emails, you'll see that the customer, in this case my personal Gmail, is received a customer quote rate, and it breaks down just like you normally would see in the email loop, where it's got the cost and then the load summary information. So again, it's fully automating that, so your users are able to get the loads created and then respond to the customer quotes all without their intervention. One more thing to point out on the customer TP. So in this example, it's Boston Beans. We have this new field here called AI generated customer quote status. There's two values, either quoted or accepted. And this will determine what status the quote is set. So I have it set to create it as quoted, and so that way the customer would have to manually select it and accept the rate via the email loop instead of automatically accepting it like we do for most stored rate entries. So again, just giving you ultimate flexibility to determine, what level of workflow you want to automate using Artimus. And then the last thing I will point out is I created a utility item for the text-to-load LWC. And we're super excited about this being a utility item because hypothetically, let's say you're invoicing some customers and you're in the middle of it and you really don't want to jump out of it, but for whatever reason you have a customer that called you and urgently needs a quote. Instead of having to go to the load record, you can just pop open the utility item, select the customer that you're trying to quote for, enter their contact information, decide if you want to send the customer quote out or not, and then type in the specific load information. So say they're on the phone and they're telling you they have a load from Chicago going to San Diego, and it's 2 pallets at 500 pounds of bananas. You can go ahead and hit go here, all while you're talking with your customer, again, not having to interrupt your workflow, and then you can see that that load was created. You can click on the load record, and then it's going to follow that same threshold logic that we use for parsing the emails. And the email, similarly to parsing the emails, will send out the quote directly to your customer. All right, so that is Artimus's first key capability that we've released in the Winter 25 release, which is the freight quotation. Now I'm going to transition it over to David so he can show you the second key capability, which is carrier capacity.
Thanks, Alyssa. So let's take a look at the truck posting ability through Artimus. As Alyssa was mentioning previous, you have the ability through emails from, let's say, a dispatcher to receive capacity lists and then ingest or parse the text of those emails and create truck postings all through the AI engine. And so I'm going to take a look here at an email that I have queued up to send, and this is being sent from Arsenal Gunners, just a made-up carrier in our system. And in the email here, you can see pretty clear, the email says that we've got some trucks tomorrow that are all dry vans. The 3 trucks posted are Chicago to Denver, Atlanta to Chicago, as well as Denver to Phoenix. So I'm going to go ahead and send that email. And I'm going to pull up the AI console here. I'm going to press refresh. And there we go. You can see the truck posting was just ingested into the system. And just to take a look through all the fields here to confirm that everything was correct, you can see that are all dry vans that were posted for Arsenal Gunners, Chicago to Denver, an Atlanta to Chicago, and a Denver to Phoenix, with a 96 confidence score. So like Alyssa said, those records will automatically be created. And I'm going to go ahead and pull up the truck postings. And I'm going to pull up all. And we can see here that we have a Denver truck, an Atlanta truck, and a Chicago truck that were all created just 1 minute ago. And I'll open up one of them just to get a closer look here. You can see I put the MC number as well into the email. And so Artimus was able to properly parse all of the text and create the record without the user having to intervene at all. And then let me go over to the AI console record. And I'm going to show one more feature here. let's say the user internally wants to also utilize Artimus without having to use it through email, but let's say they're on the phone and they want to say, I can go ahead and post this text, and Artimus will go and, similar to an email, create the record based off of the input. And you can see that the record was created. And so just another kind of cool on-platform feature to utilize AI as well. And I'm going to pass it back to Alyssa to dive a little bit more into the AI console.
Awesome. Thanks, David. Okay, so I'm going to show you the AI console, which is our admin LWC that allows you to basically review the information that is coming in and generated from Artimus, set those thresholds to determine how much you want to automate, as well as train the model on your data so that you can receive better output. Okay, let's take a look. So the first thing I'm going to show you is really just kind of a configuration setup piece. So I am on TMS admin in the mode table, and we've added this new AI enabled field, which I've enabled for LTL and truckload. And essentially what this does is sends to OpenAI what modes are enabled and should be used in order to create the load record. So highly recommend only enabling modes that you use. So if for whatever reason your org is not doing any air freight, or you don't have any ocean FCL business, highly would recommend not checking AI enabled so that it doesn't inadvertently confuse the model for no reason if it's not something that affects your business. All right, so now I'm going to jump into the AI console, which I briefly talked about, the confidence score, which again is just the confidence of the model that it correctly parsed the email or the text that was entered into the text to load or text to truck posting LWCs. But when I open up this configuration, you'll see that there's this AI model drop-down list, which comes with the 2 packaged models, as well as if you create your own custom model, that would be in an available selection here. You could then set the different thresholds depending on the model that you're using, as well as this AI console default lookback hours, which is going to basically just show how many hours are defaulted here and like what search criteria is pulled back. A really important feature here is also the AI transactions license and AI transactions that are used. We also break down the training transactions for the licensed and the used so that you're able to see exactly what's remaining. And if you have any specific questions about the costs associated with the license, go ahead and reach out to your sales reps and they'll be able to break that down for you. Alrighty, so let's take a look at the actual text. So how your admins would be able to use this is this one is got a 99% confidence. So likely there's not going to be much that your admin would need to be editing since it was over the threshold and the record was automatically created. But what you're able to do is if for some reason in the email there was an MC number that was included in the text, but Artimus didn't correctly parse that out, you're able to add, hypothetically, let's just add an MC number here, and we can change this to a Conestoga and then save. This will actually save the output that you edited, and then you can create a record from the changes that you made so that it has the most up-to-date information. So you can see once that toast popped up, I now have a new truck posting with the information that I edited. You're also able to delete a record. So again, just giving your admins the ability to make sure that the outputs that Artimus is generating is specific and correct. I am going to pull up an example that I have here. So again, using the utility item, I've got some load information here. I'm going to go ahead and hit go and wait for Artimus to try and create the load. So we've got this warning. it basically is saying that no records were created. So what your admin is able to do is take a look at that one that was just created. So I'm going to take a look at text 30. And you can again see this is the information that I entered. And it's got a confidence score of 85, which is still pretty good, but it's under the threshold that I had set for creating a load. So your admins are able to monitor this to decide, okay, what did Artimus miss? It's got the LTL, which is the correct load since it's only correct mode since it's only 3 pallets. It's got the correct origin and destination information. Looks like it got the wine barrels correctly and that it's 3 pallets. So in this instance, it looks like Artimus was being a little bit cautious when it really should have been more confident in its ability. So I am going to go ahead and actually create a training record and associate it to a training set and go ahead and hit create. So what this is going to do is create a training record so that next time if Artimus sees something similar via email or via the text LWC, it's going to be a little bit more confident to know, okay, I can go ahead and create the load information. I did this accurately. Another thing that you can do as far as training the model is hypothetically, so I worked in LTL at my previous job, and I know that wine barrels happen to be class 200. So Artimus created this load at class 70. So I'm going to go ahead and update this record so that the NMFC class is 200, hit save, and then create a new training record for that. I'm going to go ahead and keep it in the same training set and hit create. So what this will do is make sure that the next time Artimus sees a load or text that references wine barrels, it's going to look and think, okay, I know that wine barrels should be class 200. And what that looks like is if I click on this little icon here for the model training, you can go ahead and select the custom model that you're attempting to train, and then select the training set. And within this set is going to be those training records that I just created in the AI console. So you can click on these individually, see the information that you're using, which is essentially giving Artimus the answers. So it's parsing the text and saying, okay, this is all the information from the email. This is what I think the output should be. And since you created that training record, you're giving them the answers to say this is exactly what you should be looking for when you see that type of email. So training is going to be a super, super helpful tool so that you can make sure that your data is creating the correct outputs specific to your business and your needs. Last thing I'll point out is jumping back into the AI console. So today for the Artimus version 1, or the MVP as we like to call it, the output that we're trying to parse from an email is limited to these specific fields. So we're looking for mode, we're looking for the pickup information as well as the delivery information, and then this commodity info. So if for whatever reason the customer includes hypothetically a PO number, for example, Artimus is not going to parse that and put it into the PO number field. So that's something that you would want to utilize the AI created load LWC. You would see the input from AI and it would show you that it had the PO number referenced, and then your users could go in here and adjust the corresponding fields. But that's to kind of give you an idea of what type of data that you can input and then actually use to customize the model specific to your business and your needs. All right, Christine, I'm going to flip it back to you so you can continue on with the rest of the exciting features we have in the Winter 25.
Thanks so much, David and Alyssa, for walking us through Artimus and some of the configuration. And now, equally exciting, we have Liam, who's going to cover with us carrier and customer lane preferences. So, Liam, take it away for us.
Thanks, Christine. Here I'll show you how the lane preferences feature works in our Winter 25 release. So in our lane preferences feature, we capture two unique concepts. I'll start first with the concept of a carrier lane preference. What this record captures in Revenova now is the lanes that a carrier prefers to run without having to actually create a truck posting to record actual capacity. And that's sort of the important distinction. It's the difference between actual capacity and simply the preferences or the tendencies of some of your carrier network. And the reason we built this in is because we want to help you meet carriers where they want to be. We want to help you further enhance that carrier relationship you have by delivering them loads that they've run before and that they like to run. So to create that record, say I'm on the phone with my friends at Liverpool Reds, and they say, hey, I tend to have guys on the Chicago to Denver lane. Well, I would simply record an effective date. Say I talked to Arnie Slot. The lane from Chicago to Denver is the lane that they told me they tend to like to move, and I will throw in their carrier service just so we know that this is the right division of Liverpool to reach out to when this lane comes up. I'll click Save, and now this record is captured in the system for use throughout the TMS. And where we use that is in the Find Carriers tab. So here's my load. On that Chicago to Denver lane, I'll crack open Find Carriers to try to understand who should I reach out to as I try to find capacity on this load. And what you'll now see is that under Preferred Carrier Services, I can tell that Liverpool tends to have a guy on this load, so I might as well reach out to them using the Get Quotes button or simply by logging a call. You might have seen that RFQ enhancement in our recent webinar. And I can ask these guys, hey, you mentioned you prefer to run this lane. Do you have anybody today? And that does two things. It reminds the carriers that you're listening and tells them you have kept track of the lanes I like to run and you're offering them to me when they come up. And it also helps your users by giving you an additional section to open up if, for example, your in-network section and out-of-network section doesn't actually offer up any capacity for whatever reason. There's still yet another piece of data you can use to contact the right carriers. So that's our carrier lane preferences concept. And I mentioned there's sort of another side to this feature that's important to note, and that is that of a customer lane preference. Now on the customer side, what we're capturing with this record is the carrier that a customer likes to use on a given lane. So to create that record, instead of entering the carrier's TP, I will instead grab the customer's TP. Here on this same load I had before, you see my customer's Chicago Pizza. And for Chicago Pizza, again, on the effective and expiration dates that I've provided, on the Chicago to Denver lane, I know that they actually like to use MC Citizens. They've had success using these guys in the past. They really enjoyed their experience, so they want to be sure that we send them in whenever we have them. So I've saved this record, and I'll go back to the load here. I'll go back to Find Carriers, and I will refresh. You see I now have two preferred carrier services, one coming from the carrier from Liverpool that we were just talking about, and another coming from the customer. And this gives you, again, just another layer of data as you work to satisfy the customer and carrier on these loads as a broker. Your customer, seeing that you've sent in MC Citizens, is reminded that you've taken down that they liked working with Tom over at MC Citizens, you like the service that this carrier provides, and you continue to send them in because you're paying attention. But on the customer lane preferences, we take it one step further, and we use it in the Freight Quote Assistant and in the carrier quote list. So for example, if in a split model, I was the account owner for MC Citizens, and I just talked to them and they told me, oh yeah, we have somebody that can do that one for $800. I track, or the system tells the customer rep, this is a customer preference on this lane. And it also tells them in the carrier quote list as well, calling it out with this star button. So again, just further reminding the customer rep that, hey, you might have a couple of offers here, but this is one of the preferred customer, or the customer lane preferences on this lane. Now, one more thing I want to mention about our lane preferences. We took an effort to try to make sure that this information is up to date and accurate. So we added effective and expiration dates, but we also added a default expiration date that can be refreshed as you continue to update the data in this system. In TMS Admin, we've added a lane preference default expiration. And this is the number of days that we treat a lane preference as valid. 10's probably short, more realistic. Maybe you want it to be a year, maybe you want it to be 6 months, maybe you want it to be 3 months, check back in every 90 days. So when I save this value and I go to create a new lane preference, you'll see that when I enter one of these and refresh the expiration, it's using the 10 days right now. With a refresh and the new TMS admin default of 90 days, you'll see that has defaulted to 90 days. So again, we're trying to make sure this data stays relevant, and we hope that by giving you the refresh expiration link and the default setting on the TMS admin page, that you're able to do that. Now, the last thing I'll show you on lane preferences is the fact that not only can your internal users create these records, but your customer portal and carrier portal users can as well. And that just saves the extra step of having to get on the phone or get on an email to capture carriers' lane preferences or customers' lane preferences. Instead, they can do it themselves on the portal. So I'll show you here on the customer portal. So here on the customer portal, you'll see we have our new lane preferences tab and the lane preferences component. Now, just like that internal component, I can come in here and create a lane preference. Now, the difference being we lock this down to only the customer that you are logged in as. So needless to say, our customers can only create carrier lane preferences or customer lane preferences for the TP that they apply to. And this works the same way on the carrier portal. Here I am on the customer portal, but this same component applies to the carrier portal and would lock this down to only the carrier that you're logged in as. Now, the rest of it looks very similar, so I'll skip through most of the details, but I'll show you the one I have created already for this demo that shows Chicago to Denver and our AAA Cooper carrier service. Now, when I go to the quote wizard to create a load, and while I'm creating this load, I'll explain that what you'll see in the Get Quotes page now is a list of all those same quotes you saw previously, but now also a call out to say these are the carriers you prefer, Mr. Customer, based on our past conversations. And it really, again, helps the customer to continue to reuse the carriers they like to work with, driving both carrier and customer satisfaction. So we're getting our quotes now, pulling in, again, that same list. And as I scroll to the top, you'll see it all looks just about the same with the exception of our AAA Cooper carrier service, which calls out that this is a preferred carrier for this lane. So that covers our lane preferences. Again, what we're doing in this release is increasing the connection between CRM and TMS, allowing you to capture data on what would satisfy your customer, who the carriers they like to work with are, and data on your carrier network. What lanes do they like to run? Where do they want to be? It just helps you to better serve your customers and carriers as a broker. And when it comes to CRM and TMS for Revenova, that's really the ultimate goal. Back to you, Christine.
Thanks, Liam, for that exciting feature. I know a lot of customers have asked for that one. And now here's another one that people have asked for. Here's all our fleet customers. We've got Bruce, who's going to cover with us now the fleet status. So over to Bruce.
Well, thanks, Christine. I'm here today to talk about our modification to pending final for the fleet product. Originally, pending final, when a load was delivered, it would put it into a pending final status that had to be managed from the load page. We have now since enhanced this, and we have brought that status all the way through the trip plan process, and I'm here to show you how that works. So currently, as you can see on my screen right now, I have a load that has arrived at its final location, and the fleet load status is in pending final. You would always have to come back to the pending final status on the load to make these adjustments by clicking the edit and then selecting the final status. Now that we've changed this and brought it through the trip planning session, you'll see that I've set up a view here that shows me all my dispatched loads, and I have one stating right here that I have a load that is currently in pending final. Makes it very easy to locate and find all your pending final loads. Also, we brought it through the trip plans, and you can see here that we have a status on the trip plan where I can filter and find pending status loads as well. I will pull up my load. You'll see that it's currently in pending final. This gives you the opportunity to validate and talk back to your drivers that all the paperwork is turned in and this is ready for billing. Once this is complete and ready for billing, if you have a multi-segment trip plan, you can change it at the segment level. If it's the only segment on the trip plan, you can change it at the header on the trip plan here. I would just change it to completed, save, close this out. You'll see it instantly took it off of my view in my fleet management console, and I'll come back over to the load. Refresh this, and you will see now that the fleet status is in final status and the load has been modified to completed. And those are the modifications we made for the fleet management product.
Thanks, Bruce, for covering with us that important fleet enhancement. I know a lot of customers will enjoy that one. And now we have another new integration that we've built. We productized our highway integration, which is the carrier onboarding tool. And we have David who's going to walk us through how that will work for you. So over to David.
Thanks, Christine. Now we're going to take a closer look at a new productized integration that we are rolling out with Highway, who is a carrier compliance and onboarding platform. And I'm going to go ahead and pull up our homepage here. For this integration, we actually built a new LWC on platform so that you can go in and you have the option to search a carrier by their DOT number, their MC number, or their SCAC number. And so I'm going to go ahead and pull up So I just typed in the MC number for Thoroughbred Transportation. And after you go ahead and enter this carrier in the LWC, it's going to go ahead and create the account page, the transportation profile, and it's going to go ahead and also pull in all of the data that is necessary to work with a carrier. So let's take a look first at their transportation profile. And you can see here it actually pulled in the carrier services. So it looks like Thoroughbred just runs truckload. And I'm going to scroll down a little bit here. You can see that they are an interstate carrier. It's going to also pull in the cargo carried, so they do dry and bulk and general freight. It's going to also ingest any other capabilities that the carrier might have. So in this case, Thoroughbred is hazmat certified. We'll pull in their SCAC number, their asset information as to how many trucks and units they have and drivers. We'll pull in their MC and DOT number. And then I'm going to go to the bottom here, and you can see we'll also pull in their equipment types. So you can see that they've got dry vans, reefers, flatbeds. Now I'm going to go up here to the compliance section. You can see that they are an approved carrier, and that was ingested directly from Highway. And we've also got a carrier review comments section. So obviously every carrier, it's going to vary from carrier to carrier as to some of the comments that are included with their profile. We've got the agreement date over here on the right, and the highway ID right here. This is something that will be generated within Highway, and it is used to populate the correct carrier based off of whether the MC or the DOT or the SCAC was entered in. So we've also listed the highway ID. And then you can see in the motor carrier analysis here, this will assess all of the different risk categories to a carrier. And so Highway has a different, they've got a calculation as to how to score these carriers, and we'll parse in whether they're acceptable or not. And then through this risk factor, we'll actually trigger the approved status. I'm going to go a little bit further down here. We'll pull in their safety rating information. You can see that they are a satisfactory carrier. And then you can see the different authorities that they have. And I'm going to go down here to insurance policies. You can see we've pulled in all of their insurance policies that would be necessary to haul with a carrier. So we've got their general and auto, their cargo insurance, and a couple different policies on file there as well. So I'm going to go over to the settlement tab here, and you can see that we actually pulled in their remittance option, as well as populated the factoring company that they use. And then I'm going to pull up their account page and just kind of show some of the data that we've pulled in on their account as well. We've pulled in the shipping address and their billing address, and then also some contact information as to some of the different billing and quoting and tendering contacts that would be at the carrier. And that is about it for the highway integration. We're obviously pretty excited to roll this out, and they've gained a lot of popularity in the industry. And so, excited to see some of our customers start to leverage a new solution that they requested. And I'll pass it back to you, Christine.
Thanks, David, for walking us through the highway integration. And now we're on to another integration. We have integrated now with Comdata for the fuel cards, and Liam is going to walk us through how that works in Revenova. So over to Liam.
Thanks, Christine. I'll show you how the Comdata fuel card integration works. To start, I'll emphasize that the first step in the setup process is to establish the link between the drivers that are assigned to your fuel cards and the unique identifier that you've given Comdata. That's a step that you'll go through with Comdata during implementation, but it's important to do as the first step for record keeping in the TMS. The important unique identifier here is the fuel card driver number. Here I have just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for Bruce Fleet Carrier 2. And the reason that's important is because the next step in the process, after setting up your Comdata credentials, which are in TMS admin, under credentials, and we have really thorough documentation on this part, so I'll be sure to keep it brief here, but be sure to reference the documentation as you're going through these setup steps. So under Comdata, you'll enter your credentials, you'll make sure fuel cards is active, you'll save. Once you have done all of that, you'll run our new fuel card job. And what this does is saves you the manual step of building all of these fuel cards, and instead, it will pull in all of the fuel cards, regardless of their status, under the account and customer IDs that you've provided. So again, saving you the manual step of building all these cards. And the reason that it's so important to establish that unique identifier, the employee ID in Comdata, on the driver record is because when we pull in all those fuel cards, we'll find the linked driver record matching to that employee ID, and we'll create that link ourselves. And that linkage is extremely important as we match transactions to cards, which we'll come back to in a little bit. Now, before I move on, I'm using the example of a driver here, as is sort of the typical way to use these fuel cards. Each driver gets their own card, and they take it with them from load to load and potentially from tractor to tractor. We also allow you to use the asset. Here's my asset. This is a fuel card that is linked to an asset as opposed to a driver. And this is because some companies out there might want to leave the card in the cab, so to speak. This allows for that scenario as well. And the same is the case for the setup steps here. First things first, in the fuel card unit number, add that employee ID. Okay, so we've done the bulk of the setup. We've pulled in all our fuel cards because you have established the link here. You've run the job, and now you have your full list of fuel cards. Now the next step is to manage the permissions of your users in the system. In our e-payment administration, and I'll show you actually how you get here. I'll go to TMS admin, e-payment administration. This is sort of the hub, if you're not familiar, for all of the ComCheck and fuel card permissions and how it's administered. Under the new fuel card authority tab, you'll see our Comdata permissions. Now this is a handy tool because instead of having to build user after user into this list, we pull the list of active users from your system so you don't have to manually build each of them. and then you can bulk assign permissions simply by clicking into the table. Now I don't want everybody to have these permissions, so I'll undo that here. Oops. I want it blank, apply, and I just want myself to have all of these permissions. And you see we've broken it down according to each of the components in this integration that we'll come back to in a bit, and you'll see how each of these work, but just know that each action that can be done to a fuel card can be granted as a permission on this page. So your users have permission, your cards are in the system. The last step before you're really up and running is to go back and make sure that any cards that did not get automatically linked, likely either because they are inactive and don't have a driver associated to them yet, or because there may have just been a blank employee number field, will need to have those records linked. So here's an example. My driver, Bruce Fleet Carrier 2, does not have a card, but he has his unique ID here. I will go to a fuel card, back from my list here. I will go down to the bottom to the TMS assignment section. The assignment type here will remain driver. I'm going to search for Bruce. Save. And you know you've done it right if your employee number is listed here in this read-only field on the card. So we've got our fuel card set up, and this is the view you'll have with the newly associated card. Now I'll mention one thing that's very important to this integration, and it's that we never store your real ComData card numbers. For security reasons, we make sure to keep that information completely private, and we don't store it at any point in the process. So if you're searching for a card that, for example, the driver has just told you arrived in their welcome packet, like, hey, I got fuel card 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, so on and so forth. To search for that card and find the right one, you'll need to go back to ePayment Administration, to the Fuel Card Authority, to our new Secure Card Number Search. Now how this works is this is a way for you to search on the real card number without us ever storing that value. Search and success, I have a match found. So this link will take me to the right record. But that's because, again, I can't search based on the actual card number in this field. And until I actually have somebody assigned, I can't search based on some of these other fields. Now, excuse me, once that status is active, now I can search based on the masked card number, the last 4 digits, or the fuel card name, which includes the alternate card number and the person it's assigned to. So if, for example, I knew that the last 4 digits were 7506, when I type that into search, that fuel card will come up. And again, we know how challenging the management of some of these reference numbers on cards can be, so we just want to make that a little easier for you here with the secure card number search and with some of the additional search fields. Okay, now we're back on our fuel card page here, and I'll break down each of the components that you'll see when you open it up. The first is the fuel card control panel. This is the one-stop shop for all of the actions that you can take on this card. Your options that are instantly viewable include Get Card Info, which just pulls the latest card info for the limits and details. The Reset PIN, which does exactly what it sounds like. Type in a handy PIN and hit Set. Issue Funds, which allows you to add Express Cash onto this card. And issue one-time limits, which is, if you're familiar with ComData, those one-time limits that overwrite the weekly limits that you have set on the card with the multiple types present there. In the drop-down is where all your status changes live. So you can deactivate an active card, you can place that card on hold, or you can delete it with ComData. Important to note, this delete button deletes the record in the TMS, but it also still exists in ComData. So next time we run that job to pull your list of cards, this card will come right back. To delete, you have to do the ComData delete. Moving on from the control panel, you'll see those high-level reference numbers here at the top under card information. You'll see your ComData limits here, and the one difference is these will be read-only fields when you see them. That's because these fields can't be edited in Revenova that then affect what's in ComData. This is a set of one-directional fields, which means the information in COM data is pulled into Revenova solely for information purposes. Now you can, of course, edit those one-time limits and the balance using these actions here, but it's important to note that you need to take the action in the control panel. Just editing those fields in the TMS will not actually change anything in COM data. Finally, we've talked already a little bit about the TMS assignment section. Your assignment type options are driver or asset. Driver if every driver has their own card. Asset if the card stays in the cab. Now, we've been through all of that, so it's time to get to perhaps the most important part of the fuel card integration, which is the fuel card transactions. Now, in the fuel card page on the Related tab, you'll see the list of fuel card transactions that we pull in on a regular basis using our fuel card job. We recommend for that reason that you schedule this job to run as opposed to pushing run now, because that will automatically reschedule itself to run every 3 hours and pull in the latest transactions. Each transaction is related to a set of transaction line items telling you exactly what was spent on this transaction. You'll get the amount, and then you also have this other information that COM data gives us around the location, the city, and anything else you might need to reconcile the information on this card. Finally, in addition to managing the transactions on a given card, we also manage fuel card advances for reporting purposes. Now, the way you create an advance is by issuing funds onto a balance-based card simply by clicking issue. You see it happens quickly. We have our confirmation number, and then down in our fuel card advances, I now have my $150 record that can be used again to report on the cash that I've already granted onto a card in anticipation of future transactions. We also manage the fees on these issue of funds and allow you to subtract the fees during the issue process if necessary. To show you what I mean, on that same issue of funds, if I hit subtract fees, it comes down to the difference between whether those fees are subtracted from the loaded amount. Oops, got to go to the Related tab, of course. Or whether they are left on the amount. So again, here you see those fees for $1. The amount I issued was $200, but the amount that actually reached them was $199. Jumping back to that card to look at my $150, you see that I added $150 and the amount loaded was $150. Now that about covers our COM data integration for fuel cards. Now again, you have the complete ability to manage the card process from beginning to end in the TMS. You can take action on the card using the control panel. You can adjust the status of that card, and you can administer or monitor some of the preset settings that come directly from your COM data account. And our goal here is to give you a holistic view of all of the financial transactions related to a driver on a load. You can manage your COM checks already with our previous integration, and now in this integration, the fuel card side of that business as well. As you can tell, we're excited about this expansion of our COM data integration. Back to you, Christine.
Thanks, Liam, for covering our COM data integration, another one that we're excited about. And then we have a few other enhancements that we wanted to cover. No demos because they're smaller ones. The first one is DAT. DAT is looking to retire their SOAP APIs and move to REST. So we have made that transition. And as part of that transition, you will also have additional functionality to allow you to select the contact method for your load posting. You can pick email or phone number, and you can find further information in the release notes on that. Next, what we have is the FALVI insurance certificate. You no longer need a flow in order for that document to properly render. It will now render as part of the winter release. Next one is about stop location updates. We had an issue where once you created the load, you had to go into the actual stop to update the location. Now you don't need that to do that anymore as part of the winter release. Fourth one we have is with our WEX SpeedShip integration. We've enhanced that integration to allow for hazmat line items as well as the conversion of kilos to pounds, which is what WEX needs us to do. Then we have Project 44. Project 44, for those of you who are familiar with that integration, allows a preferred currency when requesting rates. You now can set that preferred currency. And then Border Connect. Border Connect allows, we made some enhancements as far as the deletion goes, and it just handles it a little bit better when you're deleting a record. And then our last one is more internal, but just for those of you who pay a lot of attention to the performance IQ and the batch jobs, we have renamed the fuel card transactions job. It's now called the fuel card job. That's our Winter 25 enhancements. So just a few reminders before we turn over to your questions. First is, don't forget the release notes and documentation is contained on our RLC. We have the link in the stack. Then when you want to upgrade and are ready to upgrade to Winter 25, please do that through our help desk on the RLC. And then if you have any questions about any use features that you've seen, please feel free to reach out to your customer success manager. And now let's take a look at those questions that you have for us. So we have a lot of questions today. I'm really excited. I figured we'd have a lot of questions about Artimus, and sure enough, here they are. So first one is about the cost. How much will it cost? This is a great opportunity for you to reach out to your salesperson or your CSM and talk about that so you can get the details of what that would look like and what that cost would be. All right, next one we have is the AI response email template to the customer customizable. Alyssa.
Yeah, quick answer is yes, it is. We're leveraging just the standard email template that you guys are used to, so fully customizable.
Perfect. Makes it nice and easy to keep that customer experience as you want it. So, all right. Next one, when the AI creates a load, can it also create the shipper and consignee accounts? Back to Alyssa.
Yeah, great idea. Today it does not. I've jotted it down, so keep for future iterations. That might be coming as a next release. Today what it does is it's going to attempt to match on the address information, but not on the actual account. So good idea, but not as of today.
Perfect. Sounds like a good idea to submit a CR for that so we can put it in our list. So fantastic. All right. And this will be the last question about Artimus. Alyssa, you're very popular today. Can we create multiple loads with this bot?
Absolutely.
Yes, let's go. Create all the loads you want. Get Artimus working. We don't want them sitting on the sideline waiting. So, okay. All right, Highway David, you are going to be up, my friend. The next one is for the highway productization. Will you support shutting off the manual integration if we're already set up when you upgrade?
Yeah. And I think maybe we might have to reach out to this person who asked the question just to clarify a bit more. If the question is, do we recommend switching over to the productized integration? We do for various reasons. If the question is more about, do we actually assist in the process of switching from the custom to productized, I believe the answer there would be no, but we'll reach out to Micah further.
Super. Excellent. All right. And then the next question is a pre-setup to have the highway integration? David.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they meant, is there a fee to have the highway integration set up? The answer there is no. The productized integration does come with your Revenova license, so no fee.
Excellent. All right. Not done with highway. We're still going here, kids. With the highway integration, if the carrier is not already onboarded for your org, can you initiate sending them your BCA to begin that onboarding process from Revenova? Or will that still need to be driven via Go Highway?
Yep. So in the demo video, you saw I requested Thoroughbred Transportation to be onboarded. Had they not been already in the system, it would have just asked for an email address that you would enter in right in the LWC, and then it would send the invite over to the carrier. So answer there is yes, you'll be able to do that all from the LWC.
Perfect. Keep it all in one spot, right? That's great. Okay. And then, well, nope, I'm not going to say this is the last one, David. There could be more because there's more coming as we're talking. If a carrier onboarded with me in Highway, would you have them added into Revenova from that Highway LWC and Revenova shown, or would a newly onboarded carrier in Highway automatically push to Revenova?
Yeah, so through the batch job we have with them, and they would be identified from their Highway ID. So I think if the question here is if they already exist in their system through the customized integration that they're utilizing, and then they go to use the updated integration, will it pull it into that account and profile? And the answer is yes there.
Great. Okay. Another highway. You're not off the hook. For the highway integration, are we able to add a carrier to Revenova through? Oh, no, I already did that. Well, no, this is similar. without
It
having the
sounds like
carrier.
this is kind of a similar
Yep.
question. And yeah, you'll be able to enter in the email address and begin that process all through the LWC. Obviously, they have to agree, to share the information and be within highway system, but you will have the ability, like we said in the LWC, to initiate the process.
Perfect. Okay. And the next one about an additional charge for artists. Yes, that was a top one about the cost. Please feel free to reach out to your sales or CSM so you can get the details of what that would look like for your organization. All right. Oh, good. We got a Liam question. I was hoping we get a lane preference one. If a customer can add a lane preference in the customer portal, does this mean they have access visibility of all the carriers in our TMS?
Very, very important question here on the lane preferences feature. As with any customer portal setups, we encourage you to pay very close attention to the sharing settings and permissions of your customer portal users. Of course, granting them access to choose the carriers they prefer does involve exposing some of those carriers to them. And of course, you might not always want to do that. So it's a completely optional feature, something to do, I think, with some of your more trusted customers as just an added relationship boost. But completely optional and definitely something to pay close attention to as you set it up.
Perfect. Excellent. All right. And then will you need a Salesforce license to use Artimus? Once you reach out to your salesperson and CSM, they'll give you the details of what you'll need, what it will cost, etc. So we'll answer that when you ask for more details, because I know y'all want more details. So reach out and that will be included in that conversation. I told you when we'd be done with highway, David. For highway integration, will there be an option to search lane from highway?
No, we didn't have lane included in here. If that is something that someone is looking to retrieve from highway, request the CR and we can definitely look at adding that in the future in the roadmap.
Perfect. Yep. Keep those CRs coming so we know what to do with them. Okay. And then do you have to send an onboarding packet when encountering the MC in highway? Can you create the carrier account without sending them an onboarding invite?
Interesting. So you should still be able to onboard them, and if they're in the system, you should be able to retrieve their information. In terms of whether you can do it without notifying them of the invite, I might have to follow up with some clarification on that.
Perfect. Okay. Oh, David, I thought you would not be the most popular with a highway, but you're going to win with most questions today on highway. Building on this question of adding carrier through highway integration, can we do this without requesting a carrier to be set up, essentially using Revenova as a carrier CRM? And that way we might need a bit more detail. So maybe on that one, we can reach out to see exactly what's being required, David. So that's a really good question. And we'll follow up, or the CSM group will follow up with you to get a little bit more detail so we can assure we give you the complete answer on that.
Right. I will reach out to the individual asking this one after the meeting here, and we'll discuss further.
Okay. And we have one more on the highway. What would we highlight as the main advantages of switching to the productized version of highway integration versus the manual one some have now?
And there's probably a handful of things we can list here. I think the one that is most valuable is just throughout time, as we continue to iterate the product, we're going to keep the highway integration as well as all other features and integrations we have in mind. So you'll never catch a scenario where, we come out with a new enhancement and something stops working with highway because, we didn't take that into account. So we support it, 24/7, and we, as we iterate the product, we keep everything in mind. So
that's right. And there are a few other small ones to talk about, like you don't need a flow to do the carrier services and the license that you use for it. So certainly, again, if you have some questions, we can answer those more directly as it relates to the productized one. But the biggest one, like David said, it's in our product and integrated fully. So, all right, we've reached the end of the questions. I really appreciate everybody's time today. It was really great to get to talk to you all about what we've done in our winter release. Please keep those CRs coming along. Please keep those questions coming along. We want you to use the cool features that we've built. And a thank you to everybody who joined. And then a thank you to everybody at Revenova. It's the product team plus everybody behind the scenes who helped makes this happen. So thanks to everybody for delivering this, and have a great one.